Hey guys, what's up? So I know that some of you are, trainers yourselves, or you help other people, or maybe you're just interested in, how different people should train. So what I wanted to make was a video that kind of takes you through what a beginner, particularly the kind of obese or overweight beginner who may be quite deconditioned, overweight to start with, what they should be considering when starting the gym. So how maybe it's you yourself, or one of your friends or one of your clients, like how they should be thinking about starting the training process and the nutrition process when they first kind of get into things, okay? Because, a lot of the information that we have online is kind of custom to people who are already exercising, I guess. We're always thinking about people who already have a certain prerequisite level of fitness, so a lot of the programs you see, you kind of do need a certain level of conditioning before you ever begin. You couldn't just jump into one of the programs that we might have in the militia if you're quite obese. Maybe you've got 40 or 50 kilos of extra body weight, you're very deconditioned, and you're really just starting to become more physically active. So for that person, what we need to consider with training is, first of all, that they have a very low level of baseline fitness. Okay, that's our first thing that we need to remember. We also need to remember that they're carrying, maybe if someone is very obese, they could be carrying up to 60 kilos of extra body weight. And as someone, let's take myself as a trainer, if I'm 80 kilos, it's very difficult for me to kind of comprehend what that person at 140 kilos is actually going through, even when they walk around day to day, when they go up the stairs, not to mind them doing a bodyweight lunge, a burpee, a jump squat, a barbell squat. All of those things are very different experiences for that person, which is something we really do need to keep in mind, okay? So they are kind of two big considerations. And then we kind of have to remember that there is obviously a sort of stigma surrounding being overweight, being obese, that person could feel like they are less confident in the gym environment. They're not going to be very confident going into an exercise class and things like that, and we do need to be aware of that. So while I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to go on this thin privilege rant that, you'll see some people talk about, but it is very real, in that, someone that is overweight or obese could feel quite uncomfortable in that environment because they're not, the stereotypical person that fits into that exercise environment. And I've seen it myself where, I've seen girls post pictures before of overweight people in exercise classes, pretty much laughing at them. And to me, that is just an embarrassment to anyone in the fitness industry, that someone would have that attitude towards someone. Because if you are someone that is in a gym, regardless of your current state of physical fitness, your body composition, whatever, you are doing a fucking awesome job, and you should be damn proud of yourself that you're even there making that effort in the first place. So that is a win. So when we think about where we're going to start, all right, so we've got those considerations in mind. We could go down the road of considering that the person could have hypertension, elevated blood pressure. They might find respiration, breathing very, very difficult because they've got a lot of extra weight. They mightn't be sleeping well at night. They might have sleep apnea because of the excess weight. All those things are very important as well, but we want to keep this video very, very practical, okay? So when we're starting an exercise program, what we have to remember is that any step up is a step up, and it is a little win, okay? So for the person who is, overweight or obese, if they don't already walk throughout the day, start there, okay? Get them to increase the steps that they take throughout the day. That's going to increase their baseline physical activity, and that's going to be a win for that person, okay? Because what we have to remember is that we take that for granted. We take it for granted that people walk around all day, that they get their 10,000 steps before ever getting to the gym. So for an overweight or obese person, that mightn't be something that we can take for granted. So we start there. Then when it comes to actually getting into the gym environment, we have to forget this idea of the basics. The person does not have to squat, deadlift, or bench press, okay? They do not have to do that. They don't even have to get on, they don't even have to start doing barbell exercises or weight machines right away, okay? It could simply be that day one in the gym, what the person does is they go in and they go on the cross trainer or the bike for 10 minutes. Boom, that's it. That's all they're going to do on day one, because not only does that get that person exercising, formally, they're doing aerobic exercise, but they're also have broken down that barrier of entering the gym environment. That is huge for an overweight or obese person, or even a beginner in general. They've first entered the gym environment, they've got a feel for the place, they've looked around, they know where things are, just so that when they next come to the gym, they don't have to deal with that discomfort of not knowing where things are. That's a big thing for people, and we need to kind of remember to walk through that experience as a beginner in our own heads when we're advising people. So once you've kind of started there, maybe the person just does that for the first week. On week 2, maybe what we'll do is we'll do those 10 minutes on the cross trainer, but what we'll then progress to is doing one weight training exercise, okay? So walking down to the weight training area is a big step for anyone. And remember, you don't have to just apply this logic if you're overweight or obese. This could be for any beginner, you know, particularly for females who have a sort of, you know, barrier against going to the weight training area. This can be very, very helpful. So, you know, week 2 in the gym, we're walking down to the weight training area. We're going to pick a piece of equipment that's free, not too concerned what it is. Like maybe it's just the leg extension, or it's the chest press, or it's the seated row. We're going to do 2 to 3 sets there. Boom, that's it. We're done for that day. Okay, that's your step up taken for week 2. You've made that transition to getting into the weight training area, doing a little bit of weight training, and again, that is a step up the ladder, and we've progressed. Okay, we've progressed psychologically and physically. And then as the weeks go on from there, what you can begin doing is adding in 2 exercises. We're now doing 2 exercises, maybe 2 to 3 times per week. You can then progress to 3 exercises 2 to 3 times per week. And then you're at the point where you're really doing, you know, a decent weight training program, where you're actually meeting the exercise guidelines in terms of hitting all of your muscle groups across the week with a couple of exercises. But we can't always expect people to get right there. Okay, people aren't always going to go from being completely sedentary to being this ideal person who, you know, hits all of their muscle groups with X amounts of sets and X amounts of reps. It's just not practical a lot of the time. Okay, so we need to walk through that journey ourselves before we actually encourage other people to then take those steps. Okay, because, you know, I think that is a very practical way of going about the transition toward, you know, meeting all your exercise guidelines and becoming a healthier, stronger version of yourself. Because a lot of the classic paths are to go to an exercise class, and you know, that's very well for me to say as someone who's 80 kilos, but if you're 140 kilos and obese and you go to an exercise class where there's a lot of plyometric exercise, a lot of stepping up and down, jumping up in the air, it's a very different experience for that person. Like, imagine if you were to go in with a 60 kilo barbell on your back, or me go in with a 60 kilo barbell on my back and then perform the same circuit. So I'm doing jump squats with that 60 kilo barbell on my back, I'm doing burpees with a 60 kilo barbell on my back. It's a very different experience, far more difficult. And yeah, it's easy to step back and say that, oh yeah, but it's supposed to be difficult and they don't have to do everything. But then we have to remember that that person has to deal with the psychological repercussions of that. They are already not feeling confident in an exercise environment. So if they're going into that exercise environment and they're feeling like they can't partake and they have to step back, they feel like people are then going to be judging them even further. So not just the fact that they're overweight, but also the fact that they can't even partake in the class and that they're only able to partake in some of the exercises and barely even able to get through it. So that is really, really important that we keep all of that in mind. And I think if you use a kind of progressive, like very micro-progressive step-by-step approach like that with someone that is overweight or obese, it's going to yield pretty damn good results. And if we then apply the same thing to nutrition, we can come up with a kind of a helpful step-by-step micro-progressive path towards a healthier diet. Like if someone is overweight or obese, what we have to remember is that they do not need the perfect diet. They do not need a special, you know, micronutrient composited diet in order to, you know, get good outcomes. What they need is a calorie deficit. Okay, having a calorie deficit for someone that is obese or overweight is going to lead to massive improvements in health outcomes just by virtue of being in that deficit and losing weight. Okay, there's going to be a lot of health benefits to that. So while for someone like me or you watching this who are already at a healthy body composition, that we might get meaningful, you know, increases in health from increasing the micronutrient composition of our diet, and maybe weight loss is only going to yield small health benefits, it's different for the obese person. They're going to get massive health benefits from just weight loss. Okay, so that's kind of what we need to consider to start with. So we also have to kind of start with behavior change in mind, and behavior change is going to be something that's very difficult to come about for someone who has, you know, spent so much of their life eating like massive quantities of hyperpalatable foods and pretty much satisfying their needs with food whenever they want it. And obviously that's just a cliche stereotype. It mightn't be everyone in that box. But if the person is there and they have no structure to their diet, and this goes for any beginner, not just the obese or overweight beginner, like if we know that they're eating 3 to 4 meals per day and a load of snacks, and it's generally consistent, they're eating pretty crap. What we do is we start with the lowest hanging fruit. So if someone is drinking, for example, a lot of soda, cola throughout the day, or Sprite, whatever it is, what you can do is simply make that transition from having, the sugar version with the calories to the sugar-free, calorie-free version. That is automatically, straight away, going to initiate that reduction in calories, and again, one step in the right direction. It's not going to be a massive change that's going to be that the person has to do all new shopping, they have to learn how to cook new foods, they have to realize what good portion sizes are, they have to learn what protein, carbs and fats are. They don't have to do all that yet. They simply have to make that one small change. From there, it could be as simple as looking at their dinner and you see that they have, I don't know, chicken curry and rice and chips with their dinner as like their standard dinner. Alright? So what you could then do is say that, alright, we're going to have the chicken curry and rice, but we're not going to have the chips. Very simple. Or you're going to have chicken curry and rice and a baked potato. It's one very small, simple change where the person doesn't have to change their shopping. They don't have to necessarily change what they're cooking. It's just that one small portion that is being adjusted. And then you do that for more meals as you move along, and gradually, bit by bit, you get the person to, all right, let's bump up your protein a little bit more. You're not having protein with breakfast, maybe we can have a high protein breakfast. Boom, that's another little win. Then we can do things like, all right, you're not really eating any vegetables, let's get some vegetables at lunch instead of whatever they're having. And again, we're just taking those small wins as they come, and all of these things lead to bigger differences in the long term. Like if you were to take that step, that very micro-progressive approach throughout the course of a year, what you would end up doing is, taking that person from starting to walk a bit more during the day, doing 1 exercise in the gym, 2 exercises in the gym, 3 exercises in the gym, doing a full, 3-day, like full body split in the gym, along with tracking their steps throughout the day. Then they're doing that consistently. It's maintained. It becomes just a habit, something that the person is used to, that they're empowered by, that they're progressing with. And then what they end up doing with the nutrition is, all right, they start by just having sugar-free, calorie-free cola, whatever it is. And then they progress to, having a slightly smaller portion at dinner, adjusting that portion. They're having some protein at breakfast, they're having vegetables at lunch. Over time, they're having vegetables and fruits at each meal. They're having protein at each meal. They've kind of become to recognize fruits and vegetables as being a little bit more palatable than previous, because those changes take time. You don't just change your taste preferences right away, but they can kind of be changed. You just have to allow that time. And the person isn't quite as fond of some of the foods as they were previously fond of. They don't really see it as being like compulsory to go to the chipper every Friday night. And all of those things, they add up to produce some big wins in the long term. So this isn't extensive by any means. It doesn't go through all of the potential health conditions and comorbidities that could be present with someone that is overweight or with obesity. But what it does do is give you a very loose framework to start thinking about this stuff. And I'm using the overweight or obese beginner as the kind of the subject here, but this applies to everyone. Even if someone is a healthy weight, they can still have a very unhealthy lifestyle and a lot of barriers in the way of them becoming more physically active and eating better. So this applies to pretty much everyone. And if we had all applied this type of approach when we first got into the gym, I'm sure we would have made a lot less mistakes, maybe not gotten injured, and maybe not have been discouraged from pursuing it so often. We wouldn't have done these aggressive diets and then failed and then had to take a step back and forward and back and forward if we had just taken this progressive approach. So it's time for us to kind of learn from our own lessons, be the leaders that lead these people from their position of not really know what they're doing, to just taking these small steps along the way. So yeah, I hope that gives you guys something to think about, something you can pass on to some of your friends or family or clients if you're a trainer. But yeah, any comments or questions, just drop them down below.